All right, when you hear the bad 80s wrestling music, you know it's Damon Martin and Jeremy Loper coming at you, man.
I was hoping you'd play a little Shawn Mullins in there, so...
I told Damon Martin, I said, back in the days that weren't so favorable to my reputation, maybe I did a little coke to that song back in the day. I used to have songs that you connect to. I used to dream of moving to Hollywood and, everything's gonna be all right, rockabye.
I haven't heard that song in, I don't even know how long. It's got to be at least 7 or 8 years, and we just heard it for the first time. And I still knew exactly who it was, though. It was like Shawn Mullins.
That guy didn't really have any other songs, but
no, he didn't. But I still pulled that one out of the archive.
When that song came out, let's see, what was that like? I'm gonna guess it was like 2000-ish,
2001, 99?
maybe 99. Yeah, 99.
99. Okay.
Wait, let's see. No, hang on.
Shawn Mullins.
Yeah, Lullaby, right?
Yeah,
98.
Okay. It was a back-to-back because it was that and Matchbox 20 was rocking, too.
Boy, they had to punch you in the face with those. They had to get you with the Lullaby and then,
Remember when Matchbox 20 used to actually be played on rock stations? When Push came out, when that first song came out?
Like alternative stations. Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, some rock stations would touch it. But then they started radio stations that, the format, they call them, so stupid, they call it a hot AC, which AC means adult contemporary, which would be your station that your mom listens to, or the station they listen to at the dentist office or something like that, forced listening type things.
Yeah. Very non-confrontational music.
Well, they said, what if we took that and we spiced it up a little bit and we started, sprucing a little and played these little edgier records? What do you think?
Matchbox 20 was the
Matchbox 20 is one of those, BMW white people songs.
I would say I was ashamed. I'm not going to say.
Or bands, I should say.
I'm not going to say I'm ashamed to say this. Well, I guess kind of I am now, but I've seen Matchbox 20 in concert a couple times. When they first came out, they played in Cincinnati, and I got free tickets to go because they were a big deal back then. When they first came out, they weren't Rob Thomas wasn't. He wasn't,
I wanna push you around.
Yeah, they weren't doing. They were playing on alternative stations. They weren't quite to that adult contempo level yet.
Yeah, they were I want to push you around, and I will. And I'm I don't think you will. Your will does not seem imposing.
Yeah, I don't
think you're going to impose your will on me.
Yeah, they transformed, though. They are now you'll never hear them anywhere except for, adult contempo, right alongside Shawn Mullins.
Did we talk about last week on the show that I talked to the guys from Better Than Ezra?
We didn't talk. Did we? I don't think we talked about that.
Yeah, on my radio show. If you guys want to go check out my podcast, it's Loper and Randy. I had a killer conversation with one of the guys from Better Than Ezra.
I heard it.
And they're coming here to Columbus, Ohio to play our zoo.
Yeah, I heard that.
With the Wallflowers. Dude, you forget Jacob Dylan was a beast.
Bob Dylan's son.
Yeah, fuck yeah, that's Bob Dylan's son. Are you kidding me?
One headlight.
You imagine when that guy rolls into town? Yeah, one headlight and hide everybody's vaginas because Jacob Dylan's about to inseminate the entire area. One drop.
They're all done.
That's actually what one headlight means. It's one giant sperm swimming towards the woman's.
This is a terrible segue, but we're talking about 90s bands, Better Than Ezra, Wallflowers. You live in Dublin, same as I do.
Yeah.
You go to the same movie theater I do. Have you seen the business over there called Marcy's Playground?
Marcy's Playground, yeah.
Every time I see it, I'm just I smell sex and candy.
Just walk in, you're hey, do you guys have any sex and candy?
I was just
special?
as soon as I saw it, I saw it one night we went to the movies, and I was that is the most brilliant name for a business.
Marcy, I said to say that, so you're totally right.
That's catchy. Marcy's Playground. I was that's amazing.
Well, it's in the same area where I train jiu-jitsu. So
oh, okay.
Yeah, when we go to the gym, we see it all the time.
Marcy's Playground. I was every time I see it, and my girlfriend's always pissed off. Every time we go to the movies, I'm I smell sex and candy.
Fuck yeah. So Matt Brown just texted me.
Oh, yeah?
He wanted to know, my wife and I, Randy, we had our big radio concert. We do a morning show theme concert. It's called Loper and Randy's Great Summer Smokeout. And Matt Brown's dude, just saw the pictures and the video from the smokeout. Looked pretty killer. Matt Brown loves hard rock.
Yes,
but this year, it was more like a chick kind of atmosphere because we had Hailstorm and Sick Puppies. You know who they are?
I like them. I like Hailstorm. Yeah. I had a good time. It was a good concert.
Sick Puppies, man. We were talking some fights with those guys.
Nice.
Yeah, even Emma.
They're Australian.
Yeah, I was saying, hey, Mark Hunt. You got to love Mark Hunt.
And then my buddies, I'm actually going on their show tonight. My buddies at Submission Radio. They have one of the biggest podcasts down in Australia talking mixed martial arts. My buddies from Australia down there.
Now,
Casper and Dennis.
I imagine we still do, but at one time we had quite the Australian following. So, all the Aussies that are with us, thank you so much.
They have a big mixed martial arts base down there. Like I said, I do Submission Radio all the time, and I get a ton of people from Australia hit me. I mean, Submission Radio goes beyond Australia, of course, but there's a big.
I got to tell you,
Australia.
Ever since I was a little kid, I dreamed about being famous in Australia, and I think it's going to happen.
Do a little. What's that dude's name? The guy from Silverchair.
Oh, Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones.
Hello, this is Daniel Jones from Silverchair.
You could be the next Silverchair, right?
Actually,
there.
This is no longer an MMA podcast. This is a 90s alternative podcast where we talk about nothing but alternative rock from the 90s.
I had to pull out Silverchair. What was that? Oh, Natalie Imbruglia. Isn't she Australian?
Yeah.
Deep cuts right there.
I'm already torn. Dude, she was hot. Do you remember how hot she was in that video?
Hot. She was super hot.
Fuck yeah, she was hot.
What are the random?
You know what? I'd like to blow coke with her and listen to Sean Mullins' Lullaby. Don't tell my wife that though.
Is
not now, but old Loper, not today Loper. Like before I knew Randy Loper.
Did you do coke to Torn?
Yeah.
I'm already torn.
That was my heyday, man. That was my heyday of making terrible decisions, and now my whole life is trying to instruct everybody not to make those.
It's
decisions.
so funny. You went from those days of like kind of doing craziness and like drugs and everything, but you were listening to Sean Mullins, and now you work at the Hard Rock radio station where it's like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but you're not.
No, I was living sex, drugs, and rock and roll, man. Like it was
Sean Mullins,
but it was an alternative rock station that I worked at down there. So it was a different time. But like that music was kind of, that obviously that was the more pussy side of things. But that's like where the Sean Mullins thing was interesting. Like that whole time is like where music split because that was like right before the whole rap rock thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you remember, music got really light, like the Goo Goo Dolls and all that. That's,
Edwin McCain.
But that's really like when we were talking about those hot AC stations. That's like what made way for that was the whole like, where do we put these bands now that Limp Bizkit is and Korn are like super in the forefront of rock and alternative rock radio? Like, how do you play Matchbox 20 next to that? You can't.
Limp Bizkit
sounds weird.
Limp Bizkit is to music what CM Punk is to mixed martial arts.
Kinda, man. Limp Bizkit gets a little bit too much hate, though. Like, Limp Bizkit gets too much hate. Like, their first record, like $3 Bill Y'all, was a good record, man. Like, not like good, like hell yeah's good, but like good, like, like Georgia Satellites is awesome. You know what I mean? But they're not Skinnered. You know what I mean? Let's be honest.
Some of deep cuts, Georgia Satellite.
Got a little change in my pocket. I saw the Georgia Satellites, Charlie Daniels, Hank Williams Jr., and Leonard Skinner all in concert one night. I thought Stonewall Jackson was going to show up.
I saw Leonard Skinner at a state fair once. They were headlining at a state fair.
There's like one original guy left from the original Leonard Skinner, but it's fucking phenomenal just performance. It's unbelievable.
What's the dude's name now? The singer. He's related, but he's not actually. He's like his brother or his cousin.
So Ronnie Van Zant is the singer now. Johnny Van Zant is the one that died, and Donnie Van Zant is the one from 38 Special.
Are they related to Paige Van Zant? Bringing it back to mixed martial arts.
You look at her hair, kind of maybe looks like she's got a little Jacksonville.
That's not a common name either.
Hair.
Van Zant's not a common name.
By the beach. You don't know. She's Freebird. I would come out the Freebird if I was her. Plus, it fucks with your opponent because it takes forever for you to walk out. You are like 15 minutes later, like, still walking out, huh?
By the time you get to the breakdown, the opponent's falling asleep in the octagon.
Because I never think about the walkout until like a former champion has to walk out first. Like Ronda, when she had to walk out. And like Jon Jones the other night, when he had to walk out first. And you think about that weight because the only reference I have never having had a fight in the cage, Matt Brown. Going over things with him, like, his different experiences and being, obviously close friends with him, getting his take on like what it's like to be first versus and then second coming out, and it's interesting to hear that, like, because you get that adrenaline, and then depending on what fight, if it's a championship fight, I mean, you're waiting forever sometimes.
I still give him a hard time about the fight in Cincinnati when he rushed out to fight Eric Silva and he tripped on the way out. He tripped on the way out.
Dude, that could have been a lot worse.
He tripped listening to Hail to the King.
Who else did that? Somebody else from Columbus, right?
Did they?
Yeah, didn't Kevin Randleman did that? Didn't he get knocked out in Pride? Didn't he fall or something?
I don't know. I don't remember that. Not falling down on the way to the cage?
And then he fought?
I don't remember
Concussed?
That. If he did, I don't remember that.
I think that's a true story.
I feel like somebody's going to, some one of these days, because like a lot of people go charge into the cage now, because Matt's not alone in that. There's a lot of people that do that.
Well, people, they don't see the wires down there, like from all the TV and then like all the crap that's got to run from like, all the block, where they block the crowd and everything.
Like what would be more embarrassing as a fighter if like getting knocked out, which sucks, but that's part of the fight game. You know what I mean? Like that's just part of the sport, or like tripping and falling on the way to the octagon. I can't imagine either one is all that
tripping and falling is just like, what sucks about that is you don't know if you're okay.
Well, tripping and falling, the other thing about it is when you trip and fall, and I'll be honest, this happened to me 2 years ago at Comic-Con. We were at an event and there was like this real steep staircase, and like we were going downstairs, and like I tried to run down it too fast and I slipped and I like fell on the, I didn't fall forwards. I slipped I slipped and kind of like hit my ass on the stairs.
Yeah.
And when you do that, like I slipped and hit, and then like as soon as it happens, like I immediately jump back up, like, oh yeah, I'm fine, nothing happened, because everyone's looking at you, like, oh, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. You want to ignore like it didn't happen. You just get up real quick, like your ass hurts or your leg hurts.
And then you go and you fight, and then you realize like, what?
Yeah,
I'm messed up, dude.
Yeah, but you're so embarrassed. You're like, I'm fine, nothing's wrong.
Now wait a second. So was it? Did he fight Pedro Hizzo? He's supposed to fight Pedro Hizzo, and there was a championship bout that was canceled. Is that right?
I don't remember that.
Does that sound familiar to you?
No, it doesn't, but that's what's bugging me, because I don't remember that. Maybe it did. I don't know. That's during those dark days of the UFC.
Okay, here's the story. Let's see. The story of Kevin Randleman's canceled title bout with Hizzo.
Why do I not remember this?
Strangest. UFC 24 began in Lake Charles, Louisiana. It was relayed to viewers that Randleman had stepped on a pipe and slipped and slammed his head on a concrete floor. The main event was off.
Oh, okay.
And the rest of the card was a dud.
Why do I not remember that? I mean, I know that was during kind of like the dark days of the UFC when they weren't on pay-per-view or anything. Like they had that like 10 or 12 event span from like UFC like 19 to like UFC 31 or whatever, where like you had to like, the only way you could see it is if you got like the Blockbuster tape afterwards.
That's so funny, isn't it? So weird. And now it's like it literally, that business depends on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But pay-per-view just wasn't readily available like that. Like everybody.
Well, they got kicked off pay-per-view. That's the thing. They got kicked off pay-per-view, and it's like
that's right. I forgot about that.
For like 12 events in a row, like you couldn't see the UFC. Like I remember I used to go to Blockbuster when there were Blockbusters, and I go in there and like find out they had new UFC tapes, because I remember when I watched Tito Ortiz against Frank Shamrock from UFC. I think it was UFC 20. I remember I was waiting to see that fight because it was like two of the guys I liked the most was Tito and Frank, and they fought, and I couldn't watch it live. And that wasn't during the days of the internet. You couldn't just go on and see fights. You know what I mean? You had to wait till the tape got to Blockbuster
and hope that nobody else had it out.
And then hope that somebody actually returned and rewound that bitch.
Yeah. They would always grab that 1957 like Chevrolet Rewinder, and they'd stick it in there. The stupid hood would pop up, and you put the video cassette in.
Yeah.
So now you have some Mayweather-Conor McGregor information,
Do I?
Yeah, I want to know what you know over here, man. Like, what's the latest? Like, what do you hear? Like on the down low?
All the latest has been the stuff with Paulie Malignaggi, which is
Yeah, so Paulie came out and said that Conor whimpers like a girl when he's struck in the breadbasket. What's this about, man? Malignaggi's not a shit talker generally outside of his fights. Since he's been at the broadcast booth, he's kind of been a level-headed dude.
Here's what I take it as, and I take it this way. I think both sides in this whole thing are a little bit to fault. I think Paulie has to take at least a part of the blame because, he was the first one to come out and start doing interviews with people after he sparred Conor when he was saying that Conor has above-average power. He doesn't have oh-my God power. Immediately right there, he shouldn't have said that. Not because, he doesn't have a right. He doesn't. When you go in and you're a paid sparring partner, I mean, you don't hear Mayweather sparring partners coming out and saying, well, Floyd's missed a step. He's slower now. He's 40. He's missed a step. He's still good.
Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think Paulie Malignaggi feels so comfortable?
Here's why. Because I think if Paulie was sparring Mayweather, if Paulie was sparring Canelo Alvarez, he would be sparring one of the boys. He'd be sparring a boxer. He can't
So
in my opinion, he can't perceive to lose face to an MMA guy.
Gotcha. So
that's
he's
my
even
opinion.
having that trouble. So like,
well, that's my opinion because you don't hear this. You don't hear people coming out of Mayweather's camp saying, "Man, I sparred with Floyd, and man, it was good, but he's missed a step a little bit. He's still fast." But at 40, he's missed a step. You don't hear that coming out. Paulie came out day one. He's like, he has above average power, but it's not, oh my God, power. And in my head, immediately I said, he would never say that about another boxer. He would never say that about Canelo Alvarez.
Is he allowed to say that? Is that against what they signed up for? Because I know there's certain things. I don't know what the particulars are.
If they sign a non-disclosure agreement, it depends on what's in the NDA as far as what they can and can't say. I don't know how far over the boundaries you go as a sparring partner, because Paulie is a guy who people actually care about, so they actually talk to him because he's such a well-known personality, and he's obviously part of the Showtime broadcast team. So he has an opinion, but I don't know how far you can go. I mean, he hasn't gone as far as saying strategy, like what Conor intends to do to Mayweather, things like that. But he's like, man, if you're talking about skirting the edge and like, a lawsuit coming your way, like he's going real close talking about, hitting him to the body and all the stuff he's saying. Like, I don't know, man. Like I said, it always reminds me of that moment from a couple of years ago when Michael Bisping and Luke Rockhold sparred, and Michael Bisping made that joke on TV when he said, I'm the unofficial Strikeforce middleweight champion. Right, and it really pissed off Rockhold because Rockhold came in to help him out, and he was coming in off a vacation or whatever, and back and forth, whatever. That's why this whole idea of what happens in the gym is supposed to stay in the gym, and I get that because, and that's why I said both guys are at a fault for this a little bit because. There's been a million times where I've heard about guys, killers in the gym, and I've heard about guys getting killed in the gym. I just heard a story. I won't tell you who it is.
So they call it, gym champion.
I won't tell you who it is. I just heard this story yesterday, so it was off the record, so I don't want to tell who it was. But there was a fighter who just fought at this last weekend's card in Mexico City. Had a win, so there's a lot of winners, so I'm not going to out the guy who it was. But there was a guy who I was told went into the gym and was getting absolutely worked and schooled by every single training partner he had, like to the point where they're like, this guy's going to get murked. He's going to get wrecked when he fights. And he went out and won and looked great doing it. As again, I'm not saying who it is, but that's what I'm saying. You don't know. That's why sparring and training in the gym is meant to stay in the gym, because there's other guys I've heard about who are just absolute murderers in the gym, killers in the gym. There's a story, and this isn't an insult because I like this guy very much. There's a million stories out about this where a guy, and I've talked to him about this, Mike Pyle, who is a tremendous fighter.
Mike Pyle. Nice
everybody
guy.
I talk to talks about, like, when he was in the gym, he's a tremendous coach. He's a tremendous training partner. And there were several years there where people were like, this guy, if he could somehow turn it on in the fight the way he trains in the gym, he's a welterweight champion.
I've actually heard Mike Pyle was the greatest fighter to ever fight
in the gym.
Period. I actually heard that in a post-fight interview.
That's interesting. But yeah, so
do you not remember the Matt Brown interview after the fight?
Oh yeah, that's right.
And the Tommy Tolho video that came out after that. Oh my God, that was the best ever, man. But holy shit!
That's the thing about the gym, man. I mean, it's the gym. I mean, that's the point. So like when Paulie's saying all this stuff, it's like, dude, why? Like, I don't get it. Like, I understand.
What's your motivation, man? Like, the guy's already paid you to be his partner. Like, why would you put a guy in that position, really?
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so he puts out the tweets last weekend, kind of ripping on Conor a little bit, and then he says he's leaving the camp. Okay, now I understand you do a couple interviews about it and talk about it, but he's still doing it.
But
and Conor hasn't addressed it once. That's how you know, in my opinion, that's how you know how this whole thing, who it bugged more. You know what I mean? He's saying all these things about Conor. I hurt him to the body. And, he couldn't go 12 rounds and blah, blah, blah. But Conor hasn't said a word. Now, Conor is a smart guy, and Conor knows that his bread is buttered by fighting Mayweather. He doesn't need to fight Paulie Malignaggi right now. But, like, at some point, that's when the tide starts to turn. Because in the beginning, I think people were kind of sympathetic to Paulie, saying, oh, well, Conor's making him look bad for no reason. He's just being honest. But when you continue to press that button, when you continue to poke and prod at a subject, people eventually will turn on you and they'll say, okay, dude, like, okay, we get it. Like, you didn't like it and you left. Let it go.
Well, and especially if you are working for that person. That's what I don't get at all. He's supposed to be Team McGregor.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to walk out with him. I thought it was kind of a cool thing having him on Conor's side from the boxing world.
Yeah, but it's like, at some point you lose the sympathy factor and you just start sounding like you're whining. I mean, that's, you know what I mean? At some point, people are just gonna be like, all right, dude, like, let it go. Like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. You're not happy. You didn't have a great experience. You're pissed off. But like, it just keeps adding on and adding on and piling on and piling on. Meanwhile, Conor hasn't said a word, and you start to think, maybe Conor did get the better of it. Maybe, maybe this guy's just that pissed off that he went in there against the MMA guy and he did get shown up. Because I heard, sources I spoke to, I heard rumors that Conor did do very, very well in those sparring sessions, is what I heard. But like I said, that's just what I've heard. But again, I'm not talking directly to Conor, and I'm not talking directly to Paulie, so I can't say for certain. But
do you think it's not going to be such a clusterfuck like everybody thinks?
For what?
For this whole fight.
Oh, it's
like everybody thinks it's going to be such a circus. Do you think it's going to be a better fight than most people think?
I think it'll be a good fight if it goes, I think it'll be a good fight for 5-6 rounds, probably. Then at that point, in my opinion, and I've said this a million times, and we're going to listen, I'd like to consider myself a knowledgeable guy when it comes to mixed martial arts, not so much with boxing. We're going to have a guy on our show here in the next couple of weeks who's going to break it down with us, a guy by the name of Dominic Cruz, who's going to join us and actually break down Mayweather-McGregor. He knows far more than probably either of us will ever know in terms of analyzing fights. But I think Conor has a chance through the first 5-6 rounds to land a punch and hurt and finish Mayweather. And then after that, I think it's all Mayweather. But if you watch like All Access, and maybe they're just painting this story, but did you watch All Access last Friday?
No, I didn't get to see the new one.
So it's the entire episode is Conor training, sparring. They didn't show any of the sparring, but they showed Paulie showing up the first time when he sparred him for 8 rounds like 2 weeks ago. All Conor. Floyd's segment on the show is Floyd going to Miami, riding bikes, him going out to Louis Vuitton and spending money. Like, they got no footage of Mayweather in the gym. Now, maybe they're painting a picture to give fans the perspective that, Floyd's not taking this seriously and now Conor has a better chance, which is my opinion. I think that's probably what they're doing. They're trying to make it seem like Floyd's not taking it seriously.
Connor's in there just working hard. Yeah,
right. But who knows? Maybe that's not the case. Because like I said, Mayweather, I mean, they did show him in Miami. He was down there with one of his kids, and then he was out school shopping with his kids and stuff like that. And it's like, maybe Mayweather, and Mayweather said that. He's like, I'm 40 now. I've been doing this for a long time. I don't need to spend every hour of every day in the gym. And I get that to a certain extent, but maybe they're just painting the picture that, he's not taking it seriously to sell people on, McGregor having a better shot. I don't know.
Well, there's going to be more angles as we get closer and closer.
Yeah.
We're what? 3 weeks, or actually, 3 weeks out?
We are now less than 3 weeks away.
Yeah. So, like, I look for 2 weeks out, a new story to develop, a big story to develop 1 week out, and then week of the fight, we're going to really see what's going on. I think they'll start talking about it more seriously.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, like I said, and the thing is with the World Tour happening and it's over with, now we just have to continue. And the thing is, sports right now, there's not much happening. You got baseball going on. There's not much happening. Football season doesn't start till September. College football starts, basically the end of August, beginning of September. So right now, this fight is the biggest thing in sports. And so they have to keep a way to, continue to put it in the mainstream. So this Malignaggi thing, no matter how good or bad or dumb or stupid it is, it's keeping people talking about the fight. And then, like you said, next week it'll be a different story. Oh, Mayweather, maybe he's not taking this seriously. There's no training footage of Mayweather that exists. Is he discounting Conor? Is he just not taking this seriously? Blah, blah, blah. Like you said, then the week of the fight will be a different story. As long as they're talking, and it's just like anything else, as long as they're talking about you, that's all that matters.
Looking over to the flyweight division for women, Paige Van Zandt and Jessica Ai. You were talking about Paige Van Zandt a little bit earlier. How does this fight happen? So, I mean, it just seems like terrible news for Paige Van Zandt.
Well, it's not. Here's what I heard from the people I talked to for her fight with Michelle Watterson, the fight that she lost. She had a terrible weight cut, is what I was told. Terrible weight.
And how big is she normally?
She's not a big girl.
She looks really small.
She's not a big girl. She's not a big straw weight. So I don't know. I think she's going to be undersized at flyweight. But I heard she had a really, really tough weight cut. And listen, when you have a bad weight cut, I don't begrudge someone changing divisions. I think it's smart that she's actually addressing it as opposed to just continuing to torture her body and or having bad performances at 115. So she's trying out 125, and it looks like she's going to fight Jessica Ai
at 125. So Jessica's got to make 125.
Well, Jessica's coming down. Jessica fought most of her career at 125.
But this was earlier in her career.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. One's going up, one's coming down. Jessica is a natural 125er, though.
I mean, she's super in shape. I saw her just a couple weeks ago. I called her jiu-jitsu fight back in April. She is an incredible athlete. So I got no doubt about it that she can cut the weight. But it'll be interesting. So new weight class for both of them. Do you see Jessica Ai surviving and thriving at this weight?
This is her weight. This is the division she's been waiting for. Jessica Ai, I think a lot of people forget. People like I don't understand like the weird hate that people have for Jessica Ai, because she's like, yes, she's lost like 4 fights in a row. All of them have been, at least 3 of them or whatever have been pretty close fights, or 2 of them have been pretty close fights. And she's an undersized bantamweight, obviously. But I think people forget, when she was fighting at 125 before, she was a badass. She was the number 1 fighter in the world at 125. Now, you have to understand, people have gotten better. The sport has moved on. This is going back like 5 years. So, will she be the same fighter now at 125? I don't know. We'll find out. But I have high hopes that this is her division. This is where she should have been all along. She is a very small bantamweight. No matter what she said, she is a very small bantamweight. She was always she was undersized against Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate is not the biggest 135er either. This will be interesting. And then Paige going up. This is, Paige has a career outside of fighting now. Paige is, dabbling in modeling and acting and doing all this different stuff, hosting and things like that. This could be one of those make or break moments for Paige Van Zandt after losing to Michelle Waterson.
I definitely think you're right about that.
If she loses to Jessica Ai and she gets knocked out, or she just loses a lopsided decision, I don't know, man. Like, everyone keeps speculating what's Paige going to do. Listen, Paige has a career Paige has a career outside of the octagon and will continue to have a career outside of the octagon. I truly believe that. Another loss, will it push her that much closer to being out of the sport? Maybe.
What about this? Will we push Snoop Dogg out of MMA in the UFC? Snoop Dogg mocks Daniel Cormier, and a lot of the hardcore fans are kind of upset about it. So here's some audio of a Facebook chat, I believe, with Uriah Faber and Snoop Dogg.
Fight, is that something you would want to see, or does it not sit right with you?
Hell yeah, I'd love to see it. All these fight enthusiasts, they're
they talking about Jones Lesnar.
No. Here's a basic thing, and I'll ask my boy Snoop when he comes up here. But you got one of the biggest, baddest dudes on the planet against another one of the pound for pound, maybe best ever fighters on the planet. Different size guys. Like, who doesn't want to see that? And we're talking about real, human nature. Big ass, oaky white dude. And Jon Bones Jones out of New York.
Big ass oaky white dude.
Who doesn't want to see that fight? Snoop.
I want to see it.
Snoop wants to see it.
I'm riding with Skinny. Snoop, who wins, Bones Jones or Brock Lesnar? He gives up 40 pounds to Lesnar. Who wins that fight?
Don't give a damn about no pounds, man. Skinny Bones is the best in that octagon, man. He go to work. You see what he did to DC? Had him crying like a bitch. I can't believe it. I can believe it. You should have been talking all that shit when he was on suspension. Never talk about a man when he's down. You want to pick him up when he's down.
So
well, what are you doing then?
Yeah.
You just called him a bitch after he lost.
Yeah.
So what do you think? DC's the kind of guy that I feel like he might run into Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, Ally Quinta, commented on this on Twitter, and then Matt Brown, agreed with him on that. I have to agree. Listen, I enjoyed the Snoop Dogg commentary a little bit. It's kind of funny, and he's he's definitely off the cuff, and he's definitely got his own brand, and it's kind of and he's pretty hilarious. He can be hilarious, but there's a thin line between being funny and just not understanding the sport and understanding the athletes.
And not having compassion for the athletes.
Jon Jones, who I think has his star power, his star has risen so much since this fight. He was on Good Morning America yesterday. I don't know if you saw that. And they asked him about why he didn't take shots at Daniel Cormier after the fight, and he said that, beyond our rivalry or anything else, Daniel's a good guy. He's a family guy. He's a really good dude. And everyone was trying to make his entire legacy about this fight. And I don't think they should do that. He had a great career as a heavyweight, great career as a light heavyweight. He's a great guy, stand-up champion, and, said all the right things. Now, does he really mean it? I don't know. I can't get in Jones' head.
I think he does mean it.
I think he does, though. That's what I'm saying. He let it go. You can't hold on to that.
Why else would he say it? Like, who's saying he doesn't mean it?
You can't hold on to that hate. Yeah. You can't hold on to that hate forever. He let it go. He finished the rivalry. It's over. You move on.
Well, when you win, of course, you let it go. Well, it's way easier to
and I think over time, Daniel Cormier will let it go too over time. You know what I mean? Like, in college, Daniel was a tremendous wrestler, but he was in the same division as Cael Sanderson. You know what I mean? Now, I'm quite sure when he sees Cael Sanderson now, he doesn't go up and, spit in his face and say, you're a scumbag. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's a rivalry.
Everybody wants to be the greatest, but it's not Highlander. It's not Highlander. Yeah. There can definitely be more than one.
Jon Jones has come out looking so good in this situation because he's paid credit to DC. He won with grace. He won with grace. It's easy to, it's tough to lose with grace. I always talk about Dominic Cruz. After he lost to Cody Garbrandt, I said, my God, that is how you lose as a champion. I mean, he was just so well-spoken in that moment, never insulted the guy, gave him credit for what he did. And I say you got to win as a champion, you got to lose as a champion. And Jon Jones won as a champion. He showed so much maturity in that moment. He knew the rivalry was over. There was no reason to kick Daniel Cormier when he was down. And I got to agree a little bit with Ali Aquinta and Matt and the guys who are speaking out against Snoop Dogg. I mean, there's a line when you go from trying to be funny to just being cruel, and if you're not understanding the almost like, I don't want to say life or death, that's probably the wrong way to say it, but like
you're right.
Yeah, it feels life or death.
Well, it's the warrior mentality, it's the Bushido code, it's everything that we hold dear in fighting that makes it not completely barbaric. It's that line, that martial arts respect, and obviously with some of these fights, that line is blurred, and you got to give like ONE FC fighting championship over in Asia kind of a nod. They keep it pretty clean. They keep it pretty first class. But, I don't know. I just think that this whole thing with Jon Jones, DC went in hard on him leading up to the fight, way harder than Jon went in on DC. So it's almost like, at the end of the day, Jon played it the right way. He didn't have to go hard in the beginning, so that way afterwards there wasn't a whole lot to necessarily say you're sorry for or to go back on.
And we haven't heard from DC yet. You got to give DC some time. I mean, he'll eventually pop back on UFC Tonight, or he'll do an interview with me or whoever, and he'll talk about it and he'll address it. And I know DC well enough to know that he's a classy guy. Yes, he has a rivalry with Jon Jones. But I think he's smart enough to, understand, that, what it is. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And that's why I said, that's why you don't mock a guy in that moment. He was crying because this was the biggest moment of his career, and he knew that there was not going to be he knew there was not going to be another one.
Right.
This was his chance. He's 38 going on 39.
No, you're right.
There's only so much time left that he could have this rivalry with Jon Jones and stay at the top of the sport. And then he lost, and that's heartbreaking. That's it. You know what I mean? That's his, in a lot of ways, that is his legacy. That's how a lot of people are going to define Daniel Cormier, is by those Jon Jones fights.
I mean, he could always go back to heavyweight. I mean, that would be interesting. What would be real interesting? I don't know if the results would be any different, but Daniel Cormier, Jon Jones at heavyweight.
I don't know if it'd be any different, though. They're not that much different in heavyweight. I mean,
well, Daniel cutting that weight,
maybe.
I'm just saying,
maybe.
That would be the only way for the third fight, right? To make it really interesting if it was for the heavyweight championship. But I think Daniel Cormier is too old at this point.
Well,
right?
That's what I'm saying. That's my point. The dude's down. He's showing raw emotion in that moment. I don't understand the point in kicking him. So when it comes to, what Ali Quinta and Matt and those guys are saying about Snoop Dogg, I got to agree, because you can't mock a guy in that moment. I mean, I don't get it. Like, that's, to me, to be honest, like, that's a pussy move to knock a guy when he's down like that. You know what I mean? Like, the first time around when the rivalry was there, Jones kind of mocked him for crying after the fight a little bit. And I almost say that's fair game, because the rivalry was so intense.
Yeah.
And so, and it wasn't over. You know what I mean? One fight didn't end that rivalry, and they knew it. But this time it's over. 2 fights, you're not going to get a third. I mean, the chances of that are so slim. You know what I mean? Guys rarely get a third shot if they've already lost twice. So Jones let it go. He was so classy in victory, and he just said, let's pay this man credit. He had a legendary career, blah, 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 blah. He said all the right things. As I said, whether or not he truly meant them, maybe in the back room he's actually laughing, but on camera, when it mattered, Jon Jones said and did all the right things, and I think his star power grew even further from that, versus a guy like Snoop Dogg, who's saying you're crying like a bitch and all this other stuff. Dude, you've never been in there. You've never fought.
Well, and I thought Snoop Dogg is kind of, and listen, I'm a Snoop Dogg fan, and I thought it was kind of cool that he was doing it. I thought it was weird that he was doing the commentary at first. I'm with you. I think it's kind of funny, if it's an alternate stream, so you don't have to listen to it. But the lack of compassion and knowledge that he has for the fight game is it's like shocking when he's talking about the fights because, when you're talking about these guys, not only as a commentator are you going to run into them, so that's probably going to be awkward. And I'm not saying you have to be scared of anybody or anything like that, but I'm just saying from like a humanity standpoint, from just a person with some kind of compassion standpoint to be like, he got knocked the fuck out. Like, I mean, that's just, I don't think that's where we need to be. Like, you don't hear commentators on the NFL like, man, he got steamrolled. He really knocked the crap. It's not pro wrestling. So, I think you get attached to you when you work around the sport as much as we do, you get to know the guys and you feel for them in those moments. You know what I mean? When they lose, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to like a guy, you don't have to dislike a guy, but you can feel for them in a heartbreaking moment like that. I mean, let's just say, for example, he's getting to know Uriah Faber pretty well. They're doing the commentary together, and Faber's a well-spoken guy, good dude. But if this was in the thick of Faber's career, he wasn't retired, and he does this commentary gig with Faber, and then Faber goes out there and fights Dominic Cruz. Greatest rival is his career, and Dominic works him like he did in their last fight, UFC 199. Yeah,
Dominic worked him over. Do you think afterwards, knowing that rivalry's done, he's never going to get another shot at Dominic Cruz? Dominic Cruz dominated him in his last fight. He's had 2 wins over him. That's it. Rivalry's done. Faber's at the end of his career. Probably not going to get another title shot. All those things add up. And let's say Faber's a little emotional. You can understand that. I mean, is he going to mock that dude in that moment? No, because he knows him.
Well, and that's what's with MMA too. Is like once you get entrenched in the community, all of a sudden everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
And so like it cuts out a lot of that, and that's how you can tell that Snoop Dogg is not mingling with the fighters yet. He's not mingling with the typical UFC MMA community because he's not training. So that's a big part of it for me. Like, I think that if you don't train or you never have trained, so you don't understand what it's like when somebody's trying to mount you or take your back and how incredibly difficult that is. Like when people boo and it goes to the ground and they think it's boring and you're fighting in the clinch and you're, struggling and using all your energy that you have and people just don't even understand what you're doing. That's where I draw the line a little bit. And that's where I think it's dangerous with bringing in some of these celebrities that don't know the game as well as others because you really miss that lack of respect.
And there's a disempowering, like if you've been in that moment, like I remember when I first started doing jiu-jitsu and I was doing really well and I felt so good about myself. I was like, man, I'm really picking this up. And you know this because you do jiu-jitsu far more than I do these days. That first time you get dominated when someone just, you feel so disempowered in that moment. You know what I mean?
It's like a baby.
You feel
treated me like a baby.
Yeah, and so it's a humbling moment.
Dare you?
It's humbling. It's very humbling. But you also, and so like imagine that on like an on a much bigger scale. With thousands of people watching, millions of people watching around the world, and you're going through that same feeling. Because I remember the first time someone took my back and just toyed with me like I was a child. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, what is happening? And you're like panic, fight or flight mode's going on a little bit. If you've never experienced that, it's a very disempowering moment and it's very humbling. Now take that to a grander scale where your whole life feels like it's on the line, your career, everything you've worked for. And you're in that same situation. Or like what Daniel Cormier went through when he got head kicked and knocked out. Everything comes crumbling down around you. Yeah, you're going to get emotional. You're going to be upset.
And didn't Snoop Dogg cry like when he got off on the murder charge?
Yeah.
Like, hey, listen, man, everybody cries, bro. All right, that brings us to our first interview of the week. Damon, I'll let you tell the good people who you talked to.
Yeah, so a good friend of mine, he's a boxing coach. He was an assistant boxing coach under Freddie Roach for many years. He worked with Frank Mir. He's worked with Brandon Vera. He works with the boxer Anna Juliton. His name is Angelo Reyes. He's a boxing coach out of Las Vegas. Good friend of mine, and we're going to talk a little bit about Mayweather-McGregor, the tour that happened, some of the craziness that happened on the tour, and obviously previewing the fight between Floyd and Conor coming up in 3 weeks. The Mayweather-McGregor World Tour finally came to an end on Friday, and today we're going to welcome in one of the top boxing trainers in the world, and also from the mixed martial arts world, a lot of people may know, he worked with Frank Mir and several other fighters in the UFC. We welcome to the show today, Angelo Reyes. Angelo, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time today.
And thank you, Damon. I've listened to your podcast, and I've always looked forward to finally being on, so thanks for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time, and what better way to kick things off than talking about this craziness of this McGregor-Mayweather tour. I know you're a busy guy. How much of it did you actually get to see?
Oh, no, I made the time to see this. Busy as I am. Oh, no, I cleared schedules even when they were late for the NYC run. Oh, I waited it out, Damien, because for me, again, I was one of the most excited people when the fight finally got made. And, no disrespect to Brendan Schaub. I know he always talked about how he was the first one to say it. But actually, if you look back on a May 2016 episode of Phone Booth Fighting with Frank Mir and Richard Hunter, we were the first ones to discuss Floyd Mayweather fighting Conor McGregor. And the reason why is I had just seen Floyd at the gym the week before. One of the fighters that I trained, Anna Houlihan, I was training there. Devin Haney was in the gym, Jay Leon Love, and a bunch of other people. Floyd Mayweather Jr. himself walked in the gym. And during that time, he was retired. But I don't know if too many people know that on off times, Floyd shows up at the gym to help out the other fighters, to show them the moves that he's learned or just to give them pep talks. And these are maybe some of the things that people don't see about Floyd Mayweather and how great of a person he actually is outside of what the cameras might show. And during that time, he was already talking to everybody about how he was going to fight Conor McGregor and that it was going to happen. And then, so then, like the week right after that, Damon, I went on Phone Booth Fighting, and I talked to Frank about, why do you guys believe that it's not possible? And then they kind of talked about the reasons why they thought. And I told them, I said, look, making Mayweather-Pacquiao was very hard to do. Making Mayweather versus McGregor, that's going to be a cakewalk. And what have you heard Dana White say up to this point? How easy negotiations were, everything was great. Because again, Damien, if it makes money in boxing, it makes sense. It doesn't take a lot. I think that the Pacquiao Mayweather fight took a longer time because of Bob Arum's issues with Mayweather Promotions. And you have to remember that Floyd was promoted by Bob. And Floyd bought his contract out from Bob. And there's always been kind of that risk there. So I think, I that's why I thought when Floyd said what he said during that time, May 2016, I was already thinking, oh, okay, this is going to happen. He did the same exact type of thing back when it was Mayweather-Pacquiao. The minute he hints around it, then you already know that eventually it might happen. So it was no surprise to me, my friend. No surprise.
You've been around, you've been around boxing your whole life, and you've been around mixed martial arts, obviously, for the last several years. I've seen some pretty big spectacles with boxing and interviews. I remember when Hasim Rahman and Lennox Lewis got into a fight live on television. All kinds of crazy stuff has happened. But kind of compare for me as maybe a boxing guy coming to mixed martial arts, the spectacle that was this world tour, because I've never seen anything like it outside of maybe the Jose Aldo Conor McGregor world tour, where it's just those two guys going back and forth. But even that wasn't the same because Jose Aldo doesn't speak English. You can't really get that same kind of emotion. And outside of Conor grabbing his belt that one day, you still can't get that same level of emotion. So have you ever witnessed anything close to what we're seeing right now?
Yeah, no, nothing. I think that it's the era that we're in. I think that the social media era has made all of us united, and we're all very global. I mean, heck, I can talk to someone from Brazil through WhatsApp, or I can connect with somebody in Europe through Facebook all the time. So I think that we've never seen anything like this. And I definitely think that what's made it fun is that Conor McGregor is basically, and again, I'll say it in a very respectful way because some people might think it's being disrespectful, but he's pretty much copied everything that Floyd Mayweather's done. There's nothing new. Conor started humble, and then obviously as he started seeing the pattern of how I can make more money, let me copy what Floyd Mayweather's doing. And, it's not like Floyd's never given the same type of credit to people like Sugar Ray Leonard or Muhammad Ali. So this is just, it's kind of cool to see two Muhammad Ali's the type go at it, in terms of talking. And I think that's what makes this so different. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that. I don't think we've ever seen the type of global media coverage behind this that we're seeing now. And you know, I got to give credit to Showtime Boxing, man. I mean, they're really, again, this is their event. Dana White has even said, the only thing I'm a part of here is to be here with Conor and make sure they don't fight each other, you know, during this tour. But he's not involved in any of this at all. So credit goes to Steven Espinoza and the rest of the team at Showtime for putting on this event. And I remember even people always saying to me, nah, man, this is going to be a spectacle. Nobody's really going to want to watch it. Nobody's going to want to pay pay-per-view for it. And my argument to it back then, Damien, is exactly what's happening right now. I told him, I said, it's hard not to want to watch something that's in your face every single day. And every single day that I turn on SportsCenter or every single day that I turn on local news, they always have a little, at least 2-minute segment that talks about Mayweather versus McGregor. So with 6 weeks away, there are people who 3 weeks ago said, oh, I'm not going to pay for this fight. And now they're like, all right, I'll pay. I'll go watch the fight. You know, and here's the other thing, too. And I'll say this to maybe some of the boxing diehard fans that you have that listen to your podcast, Damon. Those fans, I get some of them who say, this is a joke. I'm not going to pay and watch it. And my answer to it is, wait till you hear Leonard Ellerbe announce the undercard. Because if you are a pure boxing fan and you do like boxing, when you hear the fights that are being lined up for the undercard, I don't want to talk about it, but when you hear it, you're going to go, oh, man, I want to see that fight, and I want to see that fight, and I want to see that fight. So you're going to fight. You know, everybody's going to fight this event.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, going into it, Angelo, I said, you know, there was that debate about whether or not this fight would end up breaking the Pacquiao-Mayweather record, which I believe is right around 4.6 million buys. And that fight made sense. It was a fight everyone had wanted for the better part of 7 or 8 years, and it finally came together. I personally think, you know, they could have even done more had it come together a little sooner. You know, people hadn't to wait so long, and then you had the Marquez fight, but that's neither here nor there. But I was going into this thinking, you know, I think Conor and Floyd have a chance to come close to that. I mean, just the attention these two guys are going to bring. This world tour, in a lot of ways, ended up being good and also a bit of a car crash, but you and I both know people like to watch car crashes. After this whole week is over, I'm convinced this is going to break the record. I think this is going to get close to 5 million buys. What do you think? As a guy who's been around, do you think it's going to break the record?
Yes, absolutely. I said it at MMA Junkie, I think about almost a month ago when I was co-hosting that show. And, 100% it's going to break it. And I had a feeling that it would do it anyways, because you have to remember that Pacquiao-Mayweather, that should have happened back in 2010. It didn't happen until 2015. A lot of the boxing fans really got into it, but what took it over the top was all of the mainstream, you know, the LeBron James wanting to see it, Eric Spoelstra wanting to see it, like NBA, NFL, everybody. So just like Floyd had said, by the time it got to the point where they were meeting each other at halftime on the basketball court, you didn't really need to promote it anymore. There was no more reason to do that, and that's why you probably even saw more of a docile type of Floyd. I think this Floyd Mayweather is vintage Floyd Mayweather. This is the same Floyd Mayweather we saw when he was fighting Gotti, you know, or all of those times where he really needed to promote a fight. Like, people forget that the World Tour, this fun thing, Floyd Mayweather was doing this with Oscar De La Hoya. I remember being in San Francisco when they went to San Francisco for De La Hoya Mayweather and that whole press tour, and Floyd playing up the bad guy and De La Hoya playing up the golden boy, and that was a huge event. So here we are again, and it's actually impressive that Floyd is a part of it again at 40. That here we go again. He's doing it again. He's putting in a show. He's getting everybody, whether what he's saying is controversial or not controversial, he's definitely doing what he's done so many times before. And that's why I believe now it's kind of like De La Hoya Mayweather and Pacquiao Mayweather put together into one in terms of promotions, with the backing of Showtime, with the backing of the UFC, with everybody getting behind it. I mean, Dana White's got his own blog right now, and if you look at the viewerships on the Dana White blog, it's huge, man. Everybody wants to see this thing. So 100% it'll break the record. I mean, 4.6 is the record, so I think it's safe to say it'll at least hit 4.7. But you're right, though, Damien. I think it'll probably hit 5 million.
Yeah. Do you think, it's funny you mentioned that Mayweather, the Mayweather De La Hoya, I think that went like an 11-city tour. When you hear that, which is kind of crazy considering we just get done with 4 days, do you think the World Tour went on a little too long? Because I think things kind of went off the hinges a little bit yesterday in Brooklyn. Conor said some pretty inappropriate things. Floyd kind of seemed like he was out of material. It seemed like he's kind of been out of material since day one. I mean, he was so good on day one in Los Angeles, and then every day since has kind of just been a carbon copy with like a couple other little things thrown in there and him shouting like 50 times during the presser. But do you feel like it went on too long? Because I felt like they closed out strong in London today with Conor kind of, quote unquote winning again. He kind of brought the crowd back and kind of redeemed himself from yesterday, and Floyd was once again the bad guy. I feel like if they would have just subtracted that Brooklyn event, I think we'd be pretty happy with 3 days that we got. But what do you think? Was it too long? Was it just right? How did you feel about the World Tour?
No, I thought it was fine. I mean, again, on a tour like this, you never actually know what's going to happen. Look, in boxing, and this is the first experience, again, that Conor is getting this, the reason why they even do these press conferences is the boxing fight starts during the negotiation. Once the negotiations are done and the paperwork is signed and both fighters know, okay, we're going to fight each other, now everything that's said, everything that's being done, every single thing that Floyd is doing, just like Dana always says, oh, man, Conor McGregor's the best in talking trash. Conor McGregor's the best at getting people's heads. Not in this world. In this world, we both know, Damien, that the best is Floyd Mayweather. And I can already see after the first one, I can already see it starting to get to Conor. And I wanted to see how long it was going to take for Conor to wear down. And I think that the Barclays Center, New York one, that's the first sign where you really saw Conor break down. Like, man, I'm so tired of this crap. And then even today, you could tell, like, you already saw Conor bump Floyd's shoulder. Well, they're not supposed to touch each other. But Conor's already initiating that. And then today, he patted him on the head. And you see Floyd. He's cool. He's calm. Because Floyd's getting to him already. See, the best thing, and if you even think about it, Conor started complimenting Leonard Ellerby. Well, who did that first? Floyd had been complimenting Dana White from the beginning. So now it's almost like Conor is playing catch-up. He's like, okay, it's just like what Floyd had said in his interview with Brendan Schaub, Paulie Malignaggi, and Mauro Ranallo in Toronto. He said, I'm the counterpuncher. McGregor's going to do what he's going to do, and then I'm going to counter. I think that a lot of these counters, like Floyd calling Dana White the pimp, and he respects Dana White because Dana White's the one making real money, and bosses don't have to wear suits. I think you see a little hint of Conor, getting too mad about those statements, And if I was a part of Conor's team, my advice to him right now would be just, calm down, man. This is just all a part of boxing. It's like trash talking in basketball. Don't let any of it get to you. But really, don't let any of it get to you. Because sometimes when you see Conor and he says, it's not getting to me, I'm having fun. I don't know how much fun you're having, dude, with the guy who continues to call you a hoe and a stripper and he's throwing dollar bills your way. You'd have to be a pretty like a pretty good calm person to be still okay with that. So I don't know. I kind of feel like it's starting to get to Conor, man. And I totally disagree with the way Kenny Florian's been scoring it. I'm like, you got that wrong. I think Floyd won the first one. I think Conor did really well on the second one. But so I scored the Toronto one for Conor, but I saw Floyd cause damage. And then I actually scored Floyd by knockout already in Barkley, and I think that showed today. I think that Conor, the only thing that's saving Conor right now is that the fans keep cheering. But do you remember a guy by the name of Ricky Hatton? And the fans cheered him on, and Ricky Hatton still got knocked out in the 8th round, my friend. So,
Yeah. See, I don't think, here's the thing. I don't think either guy really got to either guy. I think they're both so good mentally that, Floyd looked cool, calm, and composed. Conor was just being Conor. I think, I don't think as much as because I personally thought Conor would be able to get in Floyd's head a little bit just because of who Conor is and how good he's been at this. But I honestly don't think either one of them really seemed that rattled. The only time I really saw Floyd rattled was today in London when he dropped the homophobic slur, which is really unfortunate and just a horrible thing to say. Yeah. I think that was a little bit of frustration on his part because he just ran out of words and he dropped that one, which is terrible. And I think that was the frustration kind of, because I think Floyd kind of ran out of material a little bit and Conor was still being fresh. Yeah. But I personally don't think either one of them really made that much of a dent, mentally on the other one. I think they're both too strong-willed for that. It was just a show and they both put on a show.
Yeah, no, they definitely were both, again, very entertaining. They're both putting on a show. I think it was really telling, too, that Conor, on day one of the press tour, I mean, he looked at the crowd, he raises his hands, and he's like, we did it, baby. And I kind of like parallel that to the team who was happy to make it to the Super Bowl. But if you're just happy to make it to the Super Bowl, you're probably going to get destroyed in the Super Bowl. And I think that Floyd's job has been the other way around. I think Floyd's the one that's really, in a way, honestly, man, I kind of feel like he's almost overselling it a little bit in the sense that he keeps repeating over and over, hey, man, I'm 40, I haven't been in the ring in 2 years, this kid is hungry, he's young, he's longer than me. It's like he's giving you the stats. If you're trying to bet, it's kind of like that pool hall guy who reels you in to make you think, oh yeah, man, I might have a chance against this guy, and then he just smokes you. And I think that's what Floyd's been doing. Because honestly, Damien, I mean, you've seen a lot of fights, both boxing and of course, your expertise in MMA. But did you really even believe that there was a chance that Conor in a boxing match would have a chance to beat Floyd Mayweather?
Well, and that leads perfectly into one of my last questions is that for all the hype and all the buildup of this world tour, which was great. I mean, that's what this is supposed to be. It's supposed to get people excited. It's supposed to get those people maybe on the fence to want to spend their money. I talked to Heather Hardy earlier today, a boxer I'm sure you're familiar with, and she said when this whole thing started, she's like, I just wasn't interested. It's not a good fight. Floyd's going to beat him up, blah, blah, blah. But she said the trash talk and hearing them go back and forth, it kind of got me interested. So, if that works, the world tour, obviously worked. But did any of this, and I know the answer, but I got to ask you anyways, Coach, did any of this change your opinion about the fight? Because I imagine it didn't.
Okay, I'll tell you the opinion that changed. When I was an MMA junkie, they put it out, and because I was sitting there with John Orlando, the son of Tony Orlando, and he said that Conor would knock out Floyd in 3 or less. You heard Conor say, I'm going to knock out Floyd in 4 or less. So at that moment, maybe I was a little caught up at the MMA Junkie Studios, but then I ended up saying, you know what? You can put this on record. I think Floyd's going to knock him out in 3 or less. So then, everybody kind of made a big deal about me saying that. After seeing the press tour, I actually have changed my stance. I do believe Floyd Mayweather will knock him out, but I think it's going to be more like a Ricky Hatton knockout. I think it's going to happen late in the 8th or the 9th or the 10th round. And part of that is because, look, man, Conor McGregor, by saying, I'm going to bloody knock this guy out in 4 rounds or less, in a lot of ways he showed his hand. Because here's the thing. If he doesn't go for broke in the first 4 rounds, he's not going to outbox Floyd Mayweather. If there's one thing we definitely know, that if you're betting, you don't want to bet Conor McGregor can go 12 rounds and outbox Floyd Mayweather. And I don't even have to be mean about it to say that we've already seen what his fight with Nate Diaz was like when it went 25 minutes. And we all obviously saw the first time they fought, which Floyd keeps pointing to, and we've never, when we've seen Floyd in trouble, nobody ever, like even Dana White put it out there, Floyd getting hurt by Mosley. And then Kenny Florian will say, oh, well, he was hurt by Mosley. Okay, I want to ask, did you watch the entire round? Because if you watch the entire round, what you notice is Floyd's mental toughness. He gets rocked, he gets super hurt, and in the last 40 seconds of that fight, he was pretty much beating Mosley's ass. 40 seconds of that round, he was pretty much beating Mosley's ass. And then the rest of the fight, he was beating the crap out of Mosley. And the rest of that fight, he was talking smack to Mosley while he was beating him up. I think we might see a little bit of the same. I think that if Floyd gets to a point where he's like, Conor really can't hurt me. He really can't. He doesn't even have the physical. Because I'm sure Floyd is going to respect him in the sense of making sure, as great of a boxer that Floyd is, he's not just going to take punches like Mayorga used to take. You remember when Mayorga would say, go ahead and hit me in the chin? Like, Floyd's not that guy. He's going to defend, he's going to deflect, he's going to counter. But I think if it gets to, like, round 3 and Floyd is feeling Conor's punches in his shoulders and his arms, he's angling, he's moving, and he's like, man, Conor's losing juice, and you really can't hurt me. I think you're going to see a difference. I think you're going to see the Floyd Mayweather everybody's been wanting to see for a while. The pretty boy Floyd, the guy who knocked out Morales, the guy who destroyed Gotti, the guy who was knocking out Shambe Mitchell. In fact, think about the Zach Judah fight for a second. And I've actually mentioned this before on other shows, Damien. The Zach Judah fight, you remember how controversial that was? Zach Judah, I think it was in the 11th round, hits him in the groin, hits him in the back of the head. Then Uncle Roger comes out into the ring. Then Zach Bad goes into the ring. I think that if there's a prop bet, there should be a prop bet for something crazy like that happening. Because I think something like that can possibly happen. Man, it's boxing. Anything can happen in a boxing match, which is why, again, I don't think – I think Conor is amazing in the UFC. He's an amazing mixed martial arts. I've always bragged about his striking style. He's proven it time and time again now to the point where I've become a Conor McGregor MMA. I like him. I like the way he moves. I like how he uses his karate. Because that's the background I came from before I went into boxing, and I like everything that he does. This isn't an MMA match. He can't use the kick to set up his punches. So now that he's got to just punch, every time he says, oh, man, I'm fine with this limited form of fighting, all he's really doing is actually pissing off a lot of the boxing people because it shows how much he truly does not understand what boxing is. If Conor wanted to actually gain boxing fans, he should research it a lot more, and he should say, you know what, boxing it's like jiu-jitsu on jiu-jitsu. High-level chess. There's so many great things about it. Again, man, you're not going to hear Floyd Mayweather right now, especially at his age, 40 years old. And the way he is, isn't it kind of weird to you, Damon, that he's become more of the good guy in some ways in this press tour, where even with some of the racist remarks that Conor has said, Floyd's the one saying it in the interviews. He's saying, you know what, man, I'm not going to worry about that. It's certainly, he's trying to get to my daughter. He's trying to do this. So that's what I mean is I think Floyd's not the type of guy to crap on MMA. He's been very complimentary, and he's saying, I love the MMA fans. I love MMA. I think Conor could learn and take a page, and if he's really going to be in a boxing camp, he needs to not take crap like, I'm going to beat the hell out of Paulie Malignaggi. First of all, who cares, Conor? Okay, let's say you did. Paulie's been retired. He's doing you a favor. Whether you're paying him or not paying him or whatever deal you guys are doing, Paulie's doing you a favor. He's trying to help you out. So for you to publicly already say, I'm going to beat the crap out of him, you see, that's where I don't understand. It's like, no, man, that's not how it works in boxing. Like, if somebody's coming in, another world champion coming in to help you spar, you're not supposed to do that type of crap. I'm not saying that the sparring wouldn't be intense, but I would say that, Conor's probably going to be the type of guy who, if he does spar Paulie Malignaggi and then he gets a few good seconds in there, Damien, and it looks amazing, he's probably going to get his Mac-like crew to go ahead and put it on video just to show how well he did against Paulie Malignaggi. without actually thinking about the fact that A, Paulie's doing you a favor, B, Paulie's not in fight shape. He's just he's sparring to give you the knowledge. So if you can't do real damage to someone like Paulie Malignaggi, then it's actually going to show how easy this fight is going to be for Floyd. So I don't know, man. I know Brandon Schaub said it would be smart for Conor's group to go ahead and hire Paulie. And I love my boy Paulie, and of course, if he can make money for that, that's great. That's business. But I don't think it's the smartest idea if he's going to talk crap about Paulie like that, because now you're polarizing your own teammate that's supposed to help you. So what's to stop someone like Paulie to share all the information of what happened at camp to someone like the Mayweather group? Not that Floyd needs it. I'm just saying, what would stop Paulie from even being vocal about it? Hey, man, so here's fight night. And he goes, well, I sparred Conor 30 rounds, and to be honest with you, of those 30 rounds, I probably won 25 of those rounds. What would stop Paulie from... Because once fight night happens, you have to remember, Damon, everybody already bought the fight. Everybody already bought the tickets. Everybody's already there. So whatever Paulie says, he can say whatever he wants at that point. So I don't know, man. I'm a little... After Conor made the statements that he made about Paulie Malignaggi, I don't know if it's such a smart idea for them to bring him on. Which is why, I've been asking Paulie, hey, man, have they called you? And then he's like, I don't know. They haven't said anything yet, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what unfolds over this next month. We've got a little over a month to go until the fight. Angelo, I appreciate taking the time, Coach. Obviously, I appreciate you having me on your show from time to time as well, and I want to say thanks for taking the time to do my show today. I'm sure we will speak again before this fight goes down on August 26th, because it's going to be the talk of the month. I mean, there's literally no other events going on in August. There's one UFC fight night at the beginning of the month, and then we just got 3 weeks to wait until Mayweather-McGregor, so everyone's going to be buzzing about it. Thank you again for taking the time today, and I look forward to speaking to you again here in the near future.
Hey, thank you, Damon. I'm looking forward to it, man. We should do as we get closer and closer. Let's do like a breakdown of the fight camps or something. That could be a fun thing.
I think we absolutely can do that. Angelo, thank you again for taking the time today, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Damon.
All right, bye-bye.
Fight Society podcast. It is Loper and Damon Martin here. You guys can hit us up on social media at any time at Jeremy Loper. You can find me on Instagram, super active on Twitter, and Damon Martin at Damon Martin.
You're not just active, you're super active.
Super active, bro. I wear a cape when I tweet. It's
rocking up to Sean Mullins.
Oh, man. Everything. It's going to be all right.
I was waiting for you to bust out some Edwin McCain in there. So.
I know, man. So this weekend, we have no fights, right? We have no fights until after Conor and Mayweather.
Yep, Conor and Mayweather, 3 weeks away. Lots of build-up for that fight. They originally had the UFC 215 card scheduled in August, but then they said probably not a good idea to put that on a week before Mayweather-McGregor.
What's going on with Luke Rockhold?
He's fighting September 16th against David Branch. Main event in Pittsburgh. Local. 3 hours away.
David Branch.
Yeah. Former World Series of Fighting light heavyweight and middleweight champion.
Gotcha.
Came back, won his first fight back in the octagon, and now he's getting a main event against Luke Rockhold. It was supposed to be, originally they offered it to Yoel Romero, and Yoel Romero didn't want to fight on September 16th. He wanted a couple
Too soon?
More, yeah, a couple. He wanted a little bit more time to recover from his fight with Whitaker. I mean, it was beginning of July.
Right.
It wasn't like he fought 6 months ago. He fought literally 4 weeks ago.
So how does this fight break down for you?
It's a tough fight. David Branch is a tough guy. I don't think David Branch showed his best skills in that fight. In his return to the octagon, he won, but it wasn't the most impressive performance in the world. But Rockhold's been out for over a year. He's kind of changed training camps a little bit. He's not training full time at American Kickboxing Academy anymore. He's down in Florida training with Henry Hooft.
Yeah, he's in Lantana.
Yeah, he's down there training with the Combat Club. So I don't know. It's an interesting fight. A lot of people are going to write off David Branch because a lot of people don't believe he's on Rockhold's level and things like that. But I think it is an interesting fight. David Branch has high-level jiu-jitsu. We worked a lot on his striking. He works with a great team in New York. Obviously works with Renzo Gracie and Mark Henry and a lot of those guys up there. So I think that I don't think Branch is getting a lot of respect in this fight, but it is interesting. With Rockhold coming back from by the time he fights, it'll have been a year and 3 months since he fought, he dealt with injuries. He's been doing modeling stuff. He's changed kind of training camps.
He's not dating Demi Lovato anymore.
Yeah, so some stuff going on in Rockhold's life. So
hey, so wait a second. David Branch.
Yes.
Yeah, I know exactly who this guy is. Yeah, this is going to be a great fight.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight.
Yeah, Luke Rockhold. So, yeah, where he's training now, man, I know this guy's down there in Lantana, and that gym is supposedly really deep right now.
It's
a lot of guys stopping through.
Yeah, it's the new, like, it's the remnants of the Black Zillions after the Black Zillions broke apart now. Because that's where, like, Rashad was training, and I think Volkan Ozdemir's down there, and Robbie Lawler trains down there, and so.
Literally, like, right where I grew up. So, shout out to those guys, everybody over at Temple Martial Arts as well. They're in the Lake Worth area. But right there in Lantana, man, Combat Club. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Getting some fame. Lantana's a sick area. Such a cool beach. If you're looking to go to Florida, I don't want to go give away all the good, like, local beach areas, but, you know, check it out if you're there.
I just went down to Florida when I went down there to do that feature with Ioane and Jacek, and I was passing by signs that said West Palm, and I was, like, texting you, like, I'm near West Palm, bro.
It's my place, man. It's my place. Now, you say that's going to headline the card, but like, what else is on that card? That sounds fun. So Pittsburgh, we might be able to attend that event.
Yeah, Pittsburgh in September. I'm going to go for sure. I know I'm going to go for sure. So I can't remember what else is on that card though, off the top of my head. I know they've announced a few others. I think Kamaru Usman's fighting on that card. Another guy that trains at Combat Club. I think he's fighting Sergio Moraes on that card, if I'm not mistaken. I have to look. Was it the last event that was in Pittsburgh where it was Cowboy versus Cowboy? I believe so, yeah, because it was supposed to be Cody Garbrandt against Thomas Almeida, and ended up getting canceled. It was Cody Garbrandt against John Lineker. Okay. And then Lineker got sick, and he dropped out of the fight, and Cody ended up fighting jiu-jitsu guy, Augusto Mendez, I think is who he fought, knocked him out, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and they've done that. Yeah, this is crazy, dude. Check this out. Thiago Alves on this card. Oh, yeah, against Mike Perry. Yeah, Hector Lombard taking on Anthony Smith. Yeah. Anthony Hamilton taking on Daniel Spites. Let's see. Yeah, like you said, Usman's on this card. It's stacked. Uriah Hall? Is he on that card? Mm-hmm. Oh. Krzysztof Jotko. Yeah. That's who David Branch beat when he came back. Gotcha. I kind of forget. It's funny because when we put out the Jessica I Paige Van Zandt fight for 216, like I had forgotten that they had announced a bunch of fights for 216, like Evan Dunham's fighting and some other guys, and I was just like, how did I miss this? Like, how did I miss these fights that are on here? So same thing here. Yeah. So this is not a bad card. I mean, Kamaru Usman, Sergio Moraes, Justin Ledette's coming back. That's a good fight. Gilbert Burns, that's another guy from Combat Club down there. So it's pretty good card. Pittsburgh. Not bad. Now you got to talk to Jon Jones' striking coach, right? Brandon Gibson, yeah, 6-Gun Gibson. Let's talk to him and hear that interview. Let's hear that interview right now. Damon Martin and Brandon Gibson right here on Fight Society Podcast. He's one of the best coaches in the sport and one of my favorite people to see during any fight week I attend. And, of course, he's part of the team coming off a huge win at UFC 214 as Jon Jones reclaimed the UFC light heavyweight title in an epic knockout over Daniel Cormier. Welcome to the show today, Coach Brandon Gibson. Coach, how is everything?
I'm doing well, Damon. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Always a pleasure to chat with you. So, man, how good did it feel? I mean, obviously you work with a lot of fighters, so, of course you don't want to, praise one guy more than the other. But I mean, how good did it feel to see Jon out there doing his thing again and to really put a stamp on this rivalry with Daniel Cormier? I mean, there's no better way to do it than to go out there and get a knockout.
Yeah, you're right. Obviously I'm very close with Jon. The first UFC event I worked was with Jon Jones. He's one of the first guys that really believed in me as a coach. And we've been on a long road together. I've been training him since 2011. I've known him since 2009. We have a very close bond. And it made me really happy to see him just make that walk, just enjoy the whole fight week process, have him back in there, all these, trials and tribulations. Our team has really stuck together. And, I was excited for Jon to go show the world how much better he has gotten and how much growth he's achieved as a mixed martial artist since his last bout with Ovince St. Preux, almost a year and a half ago.
Yeah. One of the things that's always interesting when a guy does have time off is, you get one side of people saying, ring rust. Is there ring rust? Is there going to be the time off be a factor? And then you get the other side where people say, well, now he had some time to actually work on some new tools and kind of build up his arsenal a little bit. And I think we saw that in the fight with Daniel. I mean, it sounds like you guys were legitimately excited to see him unleash some of these new things he learned, because a lot of times as a fighter, when you're so active, you don't really get a chance to add much to the game as much as, kind of stabilize what you're doing. It looked like you guys did have some fun and kind of add some new weapons to the arsenal.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes when we're just going fight to fight, it immediately just becomes about the game plan and the strategy and what we're going to have to do to win that bout. With Jon having so much time off, he was right back into the gym after the whole UFC 200 debacle. And we really took the time as a team, myself, Winkle John, Greg Jackson, Tus Alencar, Izzy Martinez, and our other wrestling coach, Mike Benefiel, to just work on what Jon Jones needed to improve on. We didn't know who was going to be champ, if it would be Rumble or DC or Gustafson. We didn't know how things were going to shake out. So we really used that time to just improve. And I think the biggest areas were his grappling, which he kind of got to showcase a little bit at the Flow Submission Underground, put it in Dan Henderson with that Dars, and his boxing. And I think in that bout with DC, we were really able to show how much crisper, technical, more powerful Jon's boxing got. And, that in conjunction with his kick arsenal and his wrestling arsenal and his counter-wrestling arsenal, there's a new, even more dangerous Jon Jones out there now.
Yeah. I know it takes a village, so I don't want to put, one person ahead of the other, but obviously you are one of the striking coaches. I know Mike Winklejohn does a tremendous job. Greg Jackson, of course, is the head coach. But can you walk me through the third round with the knockout? Because everyone's been talking about this viral video of Jon Jones back in 2014, talking about the tendency he saw of Daniel Cormier and everyone, seeing him duck the head. And he talked about that post-fight. Can you walk me through kind of A, where you did see that for the first time, and B, how much did you see that in training and kind of unleash that? Because it's almost like, he saw it and then he went for it.
It's funny. I remember us watching tape years ago, right before Jon had the face-off with DC at their very first media conference together that turned into like the infamous brawl at the MGM Grand. But we had always noticed that DC dipped hard. And it's funny because we had talked about, Jon's fighting DC out of a southpaw stance predominantly. And in that little face-off that they had, Jon goes southpaw and throws that long cross, and DC immediately dipped towards his power side. And I remember 20 minutes after that incident took place, Jon called me and was like, "Coach, you're right. He just immediately dipped to the inside." And so we've kind of always known about it and seen it. And I've seen other camps that fighters have too. I think Rumble, in the second bout, landed the 2 head kicks in a row when DC dipped down. It's his tendency, and all of us fighters have our own natural offensive and defensive tendencies, and it's hard to fix. It's hard to fix in those moments of duress and under fire. And but we did know going into UFC 214 that DC was going to work as hard as possible to not dip. Jon caught him a lot with the southpaw left head kick in the first fight. Rumble caught him, like I said, and we knew that if he wasn't going to dip, we had to get him to drop his guard, and that's where all the body shots came in. Not only did it help us dictate the pace and slow DC down, but it eventually dropped his guard enough for Jon to land that left high kick.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of funny when you see these old interviews where these guys, address their biggest weaknesses, and then we're still able to catch it. Much like Ronda when she was on Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel, I forget which one, but she was, saying, "Yeah, and Holly has a left head kick, and I guarantee you she won't hit me with it."
And then boom, you see how it ends, which is kind of ironic. With that said, Jon had been preparing for this comeback for so long. Was there a more poetic ending, I guess, than to get a knockout the way he did? I mean, listen, you're a striking coach. I'm quite sure you would have been proud of Jon to go out there and get a submission as much as he's been working on his jiu-jitsu. But, I mean, is there a better way to kind of put an exclamation point on this rivalry and also for Jon to come back? Because, I've argued with people about the Ovince St. Preux fight that it was a 50-45. It was a lopsided fight, but, we see such greatness in Jon Jones. We just kind of expect him to go out there and, destroy everybody. And when he doesn't, bludgeon someone with elbows inside the first 3 rounds, we're like, oh, what's going on? But was there a better way for things to be finished than the way he finished it, at UFC 214?
that's what we work so hard for. Especially coming on the OSP fight that some fans felt was a little lackluster, and the everything that went on with UFC 200. We knew that we had to come back in and make a statement. And DC fought a heavyweight. He fought a bunch of the great champs. Reigning, defending light heavyweight champion, and his only loss was at Jon with the decision, and we knew that Jon had every tool to finish him this time. And all fight week, all of us coaches were sticking together saying, we know Jon's going to finish him in these mid-rounds. And, because we'd seen it every day in the gym, we knew Jon was going to be able to set all of the traps. He was an expert chess player out there. And, some people felt like DC edged out the second round against us, and that's fine. Coming out of the second round, I knew that we were going to win the war because of the variety of attacks. Jon had a very balanced attack from the legs to the body to the head, and we knew that all of these different traps were coming into play, and it was just a matter of time before we really caught DC. So I couldn't be happier with the fight and the statement it made. Knocking out one of the greats who had never been finished before, and really letting everybody know Jon Jones is back, and he is the pound-for-pound best fighter, and he's the greatest of all time, in my opinion.
I've said that.
Getting better.
You probably saw my tweet on Saturday night. I said there's no question at this point. He is the greatest of all time, and I don't care what you try to tell me. There's no question in my mind. I mean, I said Jon was the greatest before this fight, but I think, beating a guy as good as Daniel Cormier, that to me settles the argument. He is the best there's ever been.
I agree.
Real quick before I get you out of here, Brandon, you were, it's kind of funny, you were sitting with Jon when he was doing his Facebook live chat the week before the fight, and some fan just randomly asked him about fighting Brock Lesnar. It was a kind of an innocuous question, just, off the cuff, and he said, I would love to fight Brock Lesnar, literally just a fan question, and then it kind of spiraled to the point where Brock Lesnar is responding to him, and now, Jon called him out in the octagon. I believe this fight's going to happen. I truly do, in 2018. Maybe it won't be Jon's next fight, but I think it will happen. But before I get you out of here, Coach, let me ask you, how do you feel Jon matches up with a guy like Brock Lesnar, who is such a physically imposing guy, and obviously an NCAA champion wrestler, so it's not like, he's coming in like CM Punk, no offense, with no kind of skill. I mean, he's a former champion. How do you think Jon matches up with him?
Brock's one of the biggest heavyweights that the UFC's ever seen, and he was a defending champion. When Brock gets on top of guys, his ground and pound is ferocious. It's a scary thing, He puts these guys out with it. But if you could take Brock into deep waters, if you could use footwork and set up body shots, I think he's very susceptible, obviously, to like a well-rounded game. I think Jon's intrigued with the matchup, and now that he's champion, he gets to kind of pick the type of bouts that he wants, and whether it's Gustafsson or Volkan or Brock or Stipe or whoever, I want the guy that's going to get Jon fired up. That's what I'm really looking for, and I'd love to be up for a challenge like Brock Lesnar. I've never got to corner against him or game plan for a guy like Brock, so if he came back and we were the ones that got the bout, I'm sure it'd be a huge draw, and I think Jon Jones kind of deserves a fight like this, a big super fight that gets the fans hyped and gets a lot of eyes and attention back on him, and let people see his greatness.
Yeah, well, I said it this week, and I stand by that. I love Conor McGregor. This is not like a slight on him, but I think Jon versus Brock would be the biggest fight in UFC history. I think it would do more pay-per-view buys than anything, and I agree with you. I think Jon deserves a chance to do that, and what a fight. God, I get chills just thinking about it.
I like it. We'll see how it lines up. His manager Nakikawa is good at getting these kind of things done, and it's not really up to coaches to help him strategize his next battle, but it is our job as coaches. Once Jon gets the name that he's decided with his management in the UFC, it's our job to develop that game plan. So our plan is to just keep winning. That's what we do. And we got a really good team, so we're just going to keep it going.
I love it. Well, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time. Congratulations again on an amazing victory. I know you're always busy. You got tons of guys coming up with fights, so I appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with us today, and look forward to chatting again here in the near future.
Hey, after Ray Borg wins this title, you better be giving me a call again.
I absolutely will. I look forward to that one. Coach, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Damon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Damon Martin with Brandon Gibson there from Jon Jones's camp. getting some Brock Lesnar knowledge, getting some inside information.
Next year's super fight that I think will happen.
I think so too, man.
July is what I'm calling. July.
I think that's a good call. That's going to do it for this week's podcast. We're going to come back. We're going to do a special Maymac version, right?
Yes, we are. We're going to have Dominic Cruz on to break down the fight. There's nobody better.
That's so sick. So next week, Dominic Cruz.
Dominic Cruz is going to break down Mayweather-McGregor with us. We're going to talk to him and kind of break down this fight and get his expert analysis on here to break things down. And we're going to have a lot of Mayweather-McGregor talk over the next 2 weeks because that's going to dominate the world, really. So, yeah, pretty much until after, probably for the next 3 weeks because we got 2 weeks leading up to the fight, and then we got fight week, and then obviously afterwards we're going to have to talk about Mayweather-McGregor. So it's going to be the talk of the town for about the next 3 weeks.
Man, you just got to hope for that knockout. Follow us on Twitter. You can find us at Jeremy Loper, at Damon Martin, and you can also find us on Instagram. Are you at Damon Martin everywhere?
I think so,
Everywhere.
Except I think my Facebook account is at Damon Martin MMA. Damon Martin MMA is my Facebook. It's open. It's a verified account, so you can follow it if you're not friends with me on there. But
kind of bragging right now.
I am a little bit. You have a verified Instagram account. I don't have that.
Pardon me as I get in here a little bit with my verifiedness.
Yeah.
Now, I'm also doing some vlogs on YouTube. You can follow my wife and my whole family. We do this whole rock and roll vibe, man. It's a rock and roll family, and we're doing fun shit. You're going to love it.
It's like the Osbournes, except Loper's not like 60 walking around in slippers.
Yeah, we still have sex with each other. Go to Loper and Randy with an I, TV.com, and you can check that out. My podcast, Loper and Randy, on iTunes. And this one, Fight Society. Thanks to everybody who makes it possible, and we will see you guys next week.